Prospects for BC are reasonably good for 2016 and 17. Growth rates, we expect to see 3%, maybe a little bit higher. So that's a better performance than we've seen in most of the years since the recession. We expect to see mainly driven by the domestic side of the economy, so consumer spending, residential activity, a little bit more on the government's side as well. And business investment will be, I think, improving, but still a bit spotty. On the export side as well, I think it'll be somewhat spotty. Obviously, the mining sector will underperform. We think forestry will have a reasonably good year with expectation of higher U.S. housing starts. We expect to see tourism have a very good year. TV film should have another very good year. Transportation services, I think, will also do reasonably well. So all in total, a reasonably good performance for BC, somewhere in that 3% range for this year, and maybe we expect a bit better for 2017. With BC's economy being relatively small, an open economy, really is subject to a lot of macro forces. So the state of demand for our exports out of the U.S., out of Asian economies, the pricing for our key exports, forestry, mining, metallurgical coal, all play an important role in determining our economic conditions. And typically when we see the export sector perform well in combination with a good domestic side, we see very robust growth rates, typically 3% or more, 4% growth rates perform. But when we see a weaker export sector, then of course those growth rates will drop back. And currently, obviously, the export sector looks rather mixed, very weak on the mining side, energy as well. Again, the tourism, the TV film side, forestry, lumber side should do reasonably well. So it'll be a mixed picture. The low Canadian dollar will help over time. We're now below 70 cents and expected to fall a bit further. So over time, that should help the export sector. But really, the state of demand and pricing conditions in some key industries will also be very important. There are a lot of major projects on the book, upwards of $450 billion. The vast majority of those are in the proposed stage and just waiting for the right conditions to materialize. So a good pricing for mining, for copper, for zinc, for LNG, for example, and also forestry products need to have better pricing, and also domestic conditions as well, whether it's the state of the commercial market, retail market. Some of these projects are also residential oriented, and of course the residential sector is doing well. So really there's a lot of potential in BC for further development. Some of these projects will never see the light of day, but I think a fair portion will over time. And these are very much long-term type projects. And some of the projects are also publicly financed. Utilities, transportation, rapid transit, that kind of thing are also underway, are likely to commence. The U.S. economy is really the star performer, if you will, in the global scene. Growth rates have now begun to firm after a very weak recovery phase since the great financial crisis and recession. Growth rates in the U.S., although we are trimming back expectations given the state of the global economy and given that the fact that their currency, the U.S. dollar, has appreciated and will continue to appreciate. But still, the U.S. economy is the largest in the world, and when it grows even at a 2.5% rate, which is decent, still is positive for BC. The risks that we look at, I think, are China, the problems that we see in China, the policy instability, the financial market turmoil that we're seeing on the equity market, the currency markets, and of course the state of their economy as well. We still haven't seen enough signs of stabilization that their economy will begin to pick up, so we need to see that. So that's probably the biggest risk out there. Another would be geopolitical. That's always very difficult to anticipate, whether it's the Middle East or North Korea or Ukraine, Russia. I think there was another attack in Jakarta today. So these kinds of developments can certainly blow up and cause problems for the financial markets and global economy. So that would be another risk.
We're seeing some challenges in the engineering field. On the one hand, we see the resource sector is very down right now, and that's impacting the business of a lot of our members. On the upside, we're seeing commitments around infrastructure, around transportation planning, all of those things. Projects like the George Massey Tunnel Replacement Project, the commitment by the federal government to support infrastructure. Those are all good news benefits for our members. The strong U.S. economy also bodes well for our members. A lot of them do work in the United States, and probably the lower dollar will help them compete in the U.S. market for projects. So, I mean, right now, I think the industry is watching these developments. Events like economic forecasts are very important to them now as they start planning where they're going to be focusing their resources and where their energy. So it's a time of change for the industry, and obviously we're looking forward to the return of the resource sector. But as Helmut indicated, that might be some time coming out. So I think those companies, those members of ours that we're engaged at, are looking at other sectors to get engaged in. Pretty optimistic about LNG in BC for a couple of reasons. First of all is the investors in LNG plants are not looking at today's prices. They're looking at life cycle prices, and these projects are 50 to 100 years in life cycle. So from my perspective, I think we're going to see increasing demand for energy from the emerging markets such as China and Japan and Korea and the Philippines, all of those areas. With their growing middle class, they're going to be demanding more energy. The location of BC it's closer to those markets. The colder temperatures or the colder climate reduces some of the operating costs compared to the Gulf states. So we're not going to get 22 LNG projects. I don't think anyone expects that, but certainly I think that I'm pretty optimistic that we'll see definitely one, possibly two, maybe even three LNG plants in BC over the next 2 or 3 years.